Hello, team. You're about ready to listen to my interview with Liam Patterson, the founder and CEO of Bidnamic. Bidnamic is a Google Shopping listing and optimization platform for Google Shopping ads, specifically to help brands and merchants to optimize their spend on Google Shopping ads to get the best return possible. And I learned more about Google Shopping ads than I have ever known or even wanted to know before. Enjoy. This is the E-commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the pod. I have a very exciting guest for you today, and their technology is new to me, so I'm going to be learning right alongside you. I have Liam Patterson, who is the CEO of Bidnamic. Welcome, Liam.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you along for the ride today. You're based in beautiful Leeds in the UK.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we've also this year opened an office in Austin, Texas, maybe a little bit closer to you.
Yeah, I guess the thing about Austin is it feels like it's becoming the Silicon Valley of the Midwest in the United States. So many international commerce companies and platforms and technologies have their headquarters or at least offices in Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our office is directly over the road from eCommerce, certainly one of the big players in our space.
Definitely. So what you guys do, if I understand, again, I haven't used Bidnamic before, but you couch your technology in a way that retailers can better leverage and unlock the potential of Google Shopping. So that's really your target, is helping merchants optimize their Google Shopping listings so that they can scale it, so that they can optimize for it, so they can basically make more money from Google Shopping. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. So typically we get the call from retailers who are pretty established. They've been going a long time. They've got good results from Google Shopping. It's become a good chunk of their revenue, a pretty big channel. But often that we'll get the call when they feel like they've hit a bit of a ceiling. They just can't scale their ad spend or their revenue from Google Shopping. So it feels like a bit of a revenue channel. Or it can be around the profitability, that it's just after they look at the return rates, their refunds, exchanges, taxes, they're just not making the profit that they feel they should be making from the channel. So that's typically when we get involved for fast growth, scaling businesses, but that hit one of those two challenges. So either around revenue growth or around the profitability of the revenue they're already doing through Google Shopping.
Makes sense. What I've seen historically from a Google Shopping perspective is that most merchants will implement a shopping feed engine, whether it be GoDaddy Feed or any one of the other 100 shopping feed engines out there, the omni-channel listing technologies. They'll be using a technology that can push out shopping feeds to not only Google Shopping, but to shopping comparison websites and marketplaces, et cetera, et cetera. And they really, because those systems are primarily just push-pull data systems, so they're creating a data feed that these channels can absorb and take in. They can list the products, they can get them categorized properly. Those omni-channel platforms will usually allow you to, say, customize the titles or customize the structured data for those specific channels so that they're formatted and are using the right schemas, et cetera, et cetera. And then oftentimes those middleware tools will then pull down orders from the transactional channels and push them back into either an e-commerce platform, an ERP, or whatever it is for fulfillment. But what those tools usually don't provide is any kind of channel analytics apart from success or failure of actually getting products listed on those channels. And so it feels like you plug that gap where they may have technology that helps them get into those channels, but there's no, I guess, intelligence layer sitting on top of that to allow them to better understand their performance in those channels.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So with Google Shopping, there's kind of two sides to the coin. So one is the Google Merchant Center, which is exactly that. It's the house for the structured data. So the product descriptions, the titles, the price, the imagery, and then that obviously needs to be accurate and it needs to be submitted. And rolling back kind of 3 to 5 years ago, retailers had really struggled with that. They'd often have missing information, they'd have it poorly structured, and they were on those kind of legacy platforms. Now companies like Shopify and BigCommerce and many others have stepped in and they've automated that gap. So now it's pretty easy for a retailer to, off the box, off the shelf, go in there, set up their information. It's already in a structure that can be easily pushed into their Google Merchant Center, so it can stay up to date pretty frequently. So that kind of challenge of just getting your information from your e-commerce store and getting it in near real time into the Google Merchant Center so that you could use it in the ads was a challenge that's certainly been reduced. Some retailers still struggle with it, and there's some phenomenal out there for advanced things like Feedonomics, which was recently acquired by BigCommerce. But we're really on the other side of Google Shopping, where we come in when a retailer has accurate information, they've got their titles, descriptions, prices listed and online ready for advertising. And that's where we come on. So we're on the other side of the coin, which is how do we get those products, that product information in front of the right customers who are actually the most likely to be shopping for that product and actually ready to convert to a purchase and a customer.
Wow, sounds like an amazing piece of technology. Now, I'm guessing that based on your name, Bidnamic, I'm guessing that's a combination of dynamic bidding. I'm guessing you can tell me how your name came about, but that leads me to a couple of follow-on questions to that, which is, as far as I understand, Google Shopping is now free, so for merchants to actually list their products in Google Shopping, but there is an ad layer that is possible over the top of Google Shopping, I guess as part of Google Ads, I would assume, and therefore you have to be willing to bid on a pay-per-click basis for people to actually drive traffic to those listings, drive traffic to those products, and get clicks through to those products, which then take them through to your website where those products actually get them onto the product page where they can actually buy the products.
Yeah,
so I'm guessing that your technology layer helps to optimize the bids that you are making for those ads so that you're not overpaying, you're not underpaying, you're hitting that sweet spot of both exposure of your ad, but also tracking conversion rates, click-through rates, etc., so that you can say, okay, we want to pay as little as possible, but we want to maximize our exposure of our products in the feed.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And in terms of the free listings, that's something that Google brought in maybe about 18 months ago, something like that. And it's very much on the tab. So a lot of people instantly think Google Shopping. Oh yeah, that's the tab that's on the Google search bar. You click in shopping, and that's right. That is the comparative shopping component, and that's where those listings that are free will appear, and that they're also amongst paid listings as well. But really, where the action happens on Google Shopping is naturally on the home search bar. So when you type into Google on your smartphone, on your desktop, type in, for example, men's running shoes, size 10, Adidas, and you see that carousel of adverts come up, typically 5 ads with an expansion bar on the sides, and that's where the action's happening. And as you say, that's where the cost per click. So it's free to show up and get the impression. So to have your ad show visibly to a customer. But as soon as they click onto your ad, that's when the cost per click comes in, and you're paying in an auction environment. So you're competing with, if you think about Adidas shoes in the US, potentially thousands or even tens of thousands of merchants that have products which are Adidas shoes or Nike shoes, which could be coming up there. So yeah, it's a really competitive environment in terms of this auction that's happening, and it's massive volume as well. Yeah, that's where our technology is all about ensuring that we're paying the right cost per click to, first of all, show up and get the impression, and secondly, win the click. And kind of a little known fact around Google Shopping is that as we move from the left of that carousel of adverts, which appears as soon as you make a search on Google, which relates to products, the first impression, known as the top impression, receives around 60 to 65% of all the clicks. So people will just instantly click on that first position. And yeah, you got it right. Guess what? That's the most expensive spot as well. That's what everyone's bidding towards. So you could be in second position and you're already missing out on 60 to 65% of those clicks, just because you didn't pay a cent more to get in front of that other advertiser. So there's this huge auction going on and this battle to try and win that top impression, or even just show up for those terms where there's only 5 spots.
Wow, so it's actually even more competitive than your standard Google homepage where there's 10 results that show, and before you have to carry on scrolling to see more results. So I guess the Google Shopping environment for ads is even more competitive than your typical Google Ads environment. And so from your perspective, if a brand either has an in-house Google Ads specialist or they're working with an agency that already manages all their Google advertising for them, do you think that this is quite a unique specialization for Google Shopping ads? And would a retailer typically manage their shopping ads in the sort of standard Google Ads Manager, or is this a completely different place that they would typically manage their Google Shopping ads versus their regular Google ads?
Yeah, so most agencies and in-house teams, and we work with both, will be using the Google Ads Manager itself. So they'll be logging in, and a typical day for whether someone's working in an agency or they're working in-house for a company, well, they'll be looking at that data. They'll be seeing, are we showing up? So are we getting impressions? Are we getting clicks? How much are those clicks costing? What's the ROAS or the CPA? So what kind of revenue are we getting from that? And from that, they'll have a bit of a feedback loop where they'll look and say, okay, maybe they're overbidding, they're paying more than the revenue they're making, and it's unprofitable. So then they'll go in there and they'll adjust the bids down, or they'll change the return on ad spend targets that have been set. And that's really the kind of day-to-day of a manager. And the real challenge with that is the granularity. So if you imagine average e-commerce retailer, how many products do you think an average retailer might have? Probably in the thousands, right? Maybe 8,000-10,000, something like that.
Yeah, I would have guessed 10,000 would be probably a pretty good average.
Yeah. So a lot of product SKUs. And that naturally is just way too much for a human to be going in there, logging in and checking on that many products. So what Google's best practice is to group these products together. So you end up grouping all of the sneakers together, for example, and that could be 200, 300, and setting the same return on ad spend target, which is what Google's going to try to aim to get you the return from. And that instantly makes a challenge, because when you think about those maybe 200 products, they've all probably got different margins. Some might be on sale, some might not be. They've probably got different return rates. They've got all average order values. They could lead to big baskets. Some might be gateway products that somebody clicks on and then actually draws them into buying multiple products. Others might just be one-time purchases. So really, we need to get way more granular about how we set those targets. And that's what Bid enables. So because we're a machine learning technology, we can plug in, pick up those, let's say 8,000 or 10,000 product SKUs and treat them individually. So we can actually set unique targets for the bids and manage those bids at high frequency to ensure that we're reacting much quicker than a manager, whether they're in-house or at an agency, will be doing when they're logging in, and at a much more granular level, because we're able to read out that information on an individual SKU level. So we spot if products aren't getting visibility, if it's costing too much, not group of products like all the sneakers they're selling, but at an individual product variant level. So that's the real USP that we're able to bring, is that product granularity that we can do the bidding at.
That's amazing. And do you work across all Google ad types, or do you only work across the Google Shopping ads types?
Yeah, so we started out as specialists of Google Shopping, and this is very much our core business. So I'd say about 80 to 90% of our revenue as a company is Google Shopping. It's in our first technology that we've built, and really built a core depth of product knowledge, which is so granular on that product area. We're experts at Google Shopping. But naturally, as the technology's evolved, we started to move into other areas such as search ads, which are the text ads, because really it's saying we're working at a product and a search term level. So it's easy for us to then build out and move into these other areas. Yeah, so to answer that, yeah, experts at Google Shopping, that's our core expertise. But more recently, we've started to move into other areas such as search ads and other types of marketing for e-commerce businesses as well.
And is this something that you would look to also expand into adjacent, I guess, specialities like YouTube ads, pre-roll, post-roll, mid-roll, etc.? Is this something that you guys are looking to continually be able to support a broader range of ad types for merchants that are advertising across its suite of properties?
Yeah, great question. So we're really just focused on the search side of the business. And that's really because we understand the products really well. And we can also zone in on the search terms. So we're able to see what search queries are driving what we call purchase intent, which is the second side of our business. So to be able to understand the search queries that someone's typing in and how likely they are to buy. So if someone just typed in men's sneaker, pretty broad. If someone then refined that search, maybe referencing men's size 10, black, downhill running sneaker, or brand Adidas in there, and that likelihood of clicking and buying, which is intent, has significantly grown. And then if they start referencing sizes, colors, model numbers, getting really detailed with their queries, we're able to predict that. We're able to pick that up, and we're actually able to bid not just on a product level, which is what the Google Ads API, Google Ads allows you to do, be it a big group of products, but we can actually go down and start bidding and referencing this against the individual search term. So we're able to bid much more aggressive and appear to the front of that carousel, that Google Shopping carousel, by when someone makes a much higher intent purchase, where they're much more likely to buy, and therefore it becomes profitable for us to bid a lot more aggressively. So because of that, we're really keeping our focus within search-based channels. So in terms of YouTube, it's much more display audience-based, and as are areas like Facebook and other social properties. So for those, we wouldn't really be focusing on them, because we want to leverage our core, which is a real deep understanding of the product SKU and its data, and mapping that against the relevant search queries that are going to result in higher potential purchase rates. So that's really where we're staying in our core in terms of Google search. And yeah,
it makes total sense. Look, having specialism, I think, is really important, and I think niching down is a superpower. And so I think it's easier to start in a really tight niche and then slowly land and expand from there, which it sounds like you guys have done, which is a super smart approach to a GTM model. You guys have done a great thing there. You've been operating for a long time now. You've got that expertise, that deep expertise, both in the product of Google, meaning Google's ad product. You've got deep expertise there, but then you also have a deep understanding of many different verticals of merchants' products. And then how do you guys, when we think about merchants, there's a huge range of product data quality, right? So we've got some merchants who might have a PIM. They've got amazing data quality. They've got both structured and unstructured data. They've got amazing imagery. They've got amazing everything, right? Detailed short and long descriptions, absolutely everything, really great categorization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we've got other merchants who are maybe new to the game. They're young. They maybe don't have access to all that data. They don't have the team to be able to build out all that quality product data or to gather it from suppliers, et cetera. And so they've got maybe a long description and that's it, and maybe one or two images. And so how do you guys bridge the gap for merchants that have relatively poor quality product data versus those that have amazing product data that allow your machine learning to do so much more?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work right across the spectrum, and often it can be those big merchants, those big established merchants that actually have quite poor legacy information as well. So it's not always the junior or the young guns. Sometimes it reverses. But yeah, absolutely. I take your point. And what we do is when we start working with a merchant, we actually audit their feed. So one of the advantages we have is that to be active on Google Shopping, you have to submit a certain amount of minimum information. So they have to have title, description, price, imagery. So they have to have that information there already, but there's a massive level in terms of that data quality. So sometimes there's key queries, key information, attributes like the size or the brand or the model number, which isn't in the title. And Google really uses the title to help match that to what people are shopping for. So what we'll do is when we start working with a retailer, we'll do an audit of their feed and we'll highlight if there's opportunities there to improve that feed to them. And luckily it's quite easy to supplement. So we use a supplemental feed and we can supplement that with information to make it go from maybe a bad to an okay. And then we start to actually learn through advertising. So we're able to see the search queries that are actually coming in and resulting in purchases. And sometimes they're not the most obvious ones. They're not things that people will be able to sit down and think, oh, that's how someone's going to search for this product when they're actually going to buy. So again, we can start to feed back that search query information that's actually leading to conversions, and we can start feeding that back so they can then start to use that to improve and enrich their Google Shopping feed as well. So it's twofold. One is an audit when they first come on, then they can supplement it, and then after we've been working with a retailer, we're able to start adding the search queries really from in the market of what we're seeing coming in, what's working, and that can then go in as well.
So it's a progressive feedback loop that your system helps to plug the gaps, where I guess really you're getting feedback from actual users who are searching for products, they're clicking on ads, they're interacting with ads, they're either converting or not. And so I guess what you're doing is you're taking the real-time experience that the end consumer is having in engaging with that content and with those ads, and then using their behavioral data and behavioral feedback to help iteratively improve the experience for the advertiser.
That's it, exactly. So then they can take those search terms and they can start improving them, adding them to their product description, adding them to their titles, adding them to other attributes within that feed as well to make it more accurate. And we also then take that for our bidding as well. So we're bidding on the search terms. So as we're spotting them, we've almost got two dimensions. One dimension is the product and the product information. The other is the search queries. So as we pick up what we call terms, and so we have awareness terms, which are those really broad, very generic queries, unlikely to lead to immediate conversions and sales. Then we have, as we move down from awareness, we move to consideration. So these are much more considerate purchases. People are maybe starting to reference sizes, colors, maybe even some model numbers starting to come in there and brands. And then we have those purchase terms, which are really detailed, really long tail. Maybe they've been copy pasted from another retailer's website as someone wants to check the price, or maybe it's not available on the other retailer's website. So it's almost an exact match. And they're the ones that we're bidding really aggressively for, because we know statistically in the data, in the analytics we're bringing back, that the conversion rate, so the click to sale, is really high. The bounce rate, some people clicking on it and not interacting after that click, is really low. So and because of that, the return on ad spend is very profitable. So this allows us to take those search terms that are really high converting and bid way more than other people are bidding. And by doing that, we're able to get to the front of that carousel where 60 to 65% of shoppers click. So that's the real kind of magic of this product, is that we can learn the real search queries, how they really perform. And Google's already doing some great work matching. So Google wants to match their product to relevant shoppers, but they're very different levels of intent. And that's what we're able to really zone in on with this purchase intent, this funnel. So we can be really aggressive for those very high value terms, which result in very good profits for the retailer.
Wow, that's an amazing bit of kit that you guys have developed over time. Now, I recently bought a Huawei Watch GT3 smartwatch, and I bought because of a Google Shopping ad. Now, that might be, just thinking back through my purchases, because I do a lot of shopping online, but I think that might be the first purchase, or definitely one of only a handful of purchases that I went straight from a Google Shopping ad on the standard search results tab, the All tab, as opposed to going to the Shopping tab and seeing all the results, including the organic results. Now, I always assumed that under the All Results tab, that block of, say, 5 results from Google Shopping that we're showing there, even though it says sponsored, I assumed that Google kind of blended both organic and paid results there, similar to how they blend the standard search results with both paid and organic. But based on what you're saying, it sounds to me like if you're in the All tab and you are looking at Google Shopping results, those are only 100% paid ads. Otherwise, your product simply will not be visible there. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. And what a lot of shoppers, of consumers, people who are using Google day in, day out, also assume about these Google Shopping ads is that the first one, just like on Amazon, the cheapest product, the one that's going to be delivered the quickest, the one that's the most trusted on Amazon, will win the buy box. And sure, price is the main thing which allows you to win the buy box on Amazon. And that's what they assume it's going to be when they come to Google for the Google Shopping results. That's why 60 to 65% of shoppers are clicking on that first result, because they're like, oh, it's got to be the cheapest, it's got to be the most trusted, it's got to be the most reliable, assuming that Google has done that filtering, just like it does on, as you scroll down, typically the results will become less valuable, and Google has tried to surface the first SEO or organic piece of content to be the most relevant to your search. And that's not how it works. It's a real-time auction. It simply means that retailer is willing to pay Google the most for that click on that product. And that's what we break it down. We break it down to be so granular that we can bid by looking at the search terms that are coming in, the queries, and matching those against the right products that are going to convert at the right price.
And would you argue you're just dropping some absolute amazing truth bombs here, and you're really educating and enlightening me, because this is not an area that I play in at all. I don't provide campaign services or anything like that to my clients. I'm primarily focusing on tech and ops. And so this is an area that I'm definitely by far not an expert in any stretch of the imagination. And so it's great information that you're providing to me and to the audience. So I really, really appreciate it. But would it be your recommendation that if you are a physical product-based retailer, would it be your recommendation? I mean, obviously you're going to be a little bit biased because of the technology that you run, but would you say that from an ROI perspective, that they should so heavily weight their ad spend towards Google Shopping ads, say maybe 70-30 versus the regular Google ads, the regular PPC ads, the regular text ads, the regular display ads, the regular YouTube ads, for example, across all these other ad types that Google offer? I guess if you're selling physical products and you feel like you are at least reasonably competitive on price, and you know that these are high intent queries that people are going to be making for those products, and they're usually going to be naming it by name brand or model or whatever it might be, would you say that the best ROI that they're going to get is to heavily skew their advertising dollar with Alphabet towards these Google Shopping ads?
Yeah, absolutely would do. And as you say, yeah, maybe I'm biased, but I'm actually not. So we work with hundreds of retailers, and we see probably thousands of retailers in terms of doing audits, in terms of seeing how their budgets are split. And actually, you mentioned their kind of 70-30. We're seeing for very big brands being an 80-20 split. Roughly 70 to 80% of their spend is going on Google Shopping. And there's a few reasons for that. So firstly, it's direct response. People are directly typing in those products, those model numbers, they're going to Google at that moment of being ready to purchase. So it's got all the advantages that search has over, say, other channels like display adverts, where people might be idly browsing on social media. But also Google Shopping is a visual channel. So unlike the search ads, the written ads, the Google Shopping, they can see the product image. They can see a very truncated title, a short title. They can see the price. So before they click on that ad, which is when it costs money, so the showing up, the impressions is free, but as soon as they click on it, that's when the cost comes in for the advertiser, for the retailer. So to be able to see that before they click means that a lot of people, if it is the wrong product for them, they'll actually scroll past it and they won't click on it, which again saves the retailer money, versus most people on search ads don't read it, they just click on it straight away, and that money gets spent even when someone isn't that engaged in actually the targeting maybe wasn't spot on for what they were looking for. So typically Google Shopping has a higher conversion rates than search ads, which again drives it in there. And the other part of it is that Google Shopping, whilst we talked about the carousel on Google after you searched, whether it's on a mobile, on a device, appearing there, it's right at the top. So it sits above the search ads, which are below it, then the SEO results. This is right on the top. It's visual. They've got to scroll past it. So it's really impactful and it receives a lot of the clicks. And the other part of it is that it doesn't only live on Google Shopping, in that the Google homepage, the shopping tab, that it's also embedded under relevant YouTube adverts. You'll see the carousel on, say, if it's their video is all about running trainers, maybe it's a product review, then that same carousel, which is Google Shopping, it's the same ads are appearing in different placements on images. So if you type the image search for that product, if there's a purchase intent, so if you've got a shopping intent for what you've looked for, Google will also run those same carousel of ads below in the images, in Google Images. So you're getting quite a few different placements. However, the big downside that we see is, do people know the product you're selling? So it's really good if you're a retailer selling well-known products like Nike, Adidas, other brands that customers know. They know the model numbers, they know the brands, they're actively searching for a commoditized product. However, if you're maybe an influencer, you're creating a new product, you're building a brand, they don't know that brand. If it's not already got some notoriety, then people aren't going to be searching for it. And then it's very challenging because, you're not having those high purchase intent because people don't know your brand. Or if they are, maybe they would just have clicked on your ad on your organic listing. So maybe you end up paying twice. Maybe they saw you for a video you created, or through some content you sponsored, or through a Facebook or Instagram advert, and you're paying again for that Facebook ad. So so it works great for retailers where there's people actively searching for what they're shopping for. If you are a D2C brand, maybe think twice about it because you're likely to not build the audience and maybe not get a great ROI from it.
Yeah, that does make complete sense. And if I think back through my shopping journey to buy my Huawei Watch GT3 and how I ended up buying through a Google Shopping ad, when I think about that, I started at the very top of the funnel, very generic, very long tail. Have had Fitbits before, but then I wanted to see what the latest and greatest smartwatch was and fitness watch was. So I started with best fitness watch or some query like that, or best smartwatch or smartwatch with NFC capabilities. And then I read a bunch of reviews. I watched a couple of review videos where maybe they compared 2-3 products together. Then once I settled on the product based on those reviews, based on some blog articles, based on some tech articles on the latest technology as of 2022, 2023, things like that. So I went through what I would consider a very standard customer journey. I looked at product reviews, like on physical websites that were selling that product. I looked at real product reviews from real customers of that product, not just perhaps paid blog tech reviews, because oftentimes those blogs are paid for. But I wanted to get a really broad spectrum of recommendations around a product. Then I started narrowing my search from there. I started narrowing down, okay, I probably want one of these two watches or one of these two brands, one of these two models, then narrowed down. Probably did 30 Google searches in the process of doing that, and then going down those rabbit holes. But ultimately, once I'd made my purchase decision, I knew exactly the brand, I knew exactly the model, and I knew exactly the color that I wanted. And so it was just simply a matter of finding that product locally at the cheapest price I could find. And I found that through Google Shopping, but I did find that it was a bit annoying that they didn't order it based on price, because again, I had the expectation that they would order it on price. But as I started to scroll through the availability, I noticed that 4, 5, 6 slots, the carousel, was actually the cheapest price because that retailer actually had the product on special. And so I did ultimately find the cheapest price, but I had to do a little bit of searching to find it. So that journey that I just described, is that a pretty typical customer journey that you guys are seeing with these shopping ads?
I think it is, yeah. So what we do see is it really depends on the item price. Maybe roughly we're talking a few $100s, I'd imagine, for that watch, or maybe even more.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we see. So as the order value goes up, then the amount of research you're going to do is increasing as well. So actually, we see retailers who have products under £100 here in the UK, or maybe $120, something like that in the US, where below that, customers are going to click and buy. The amount of research they're going to do, because the amount of discount they're going to do is going to be quite low. They're going to gain themselves. However, as that price moves up, the amount of clicks, the amount of research that goes into it does move to be more of a considered purchase. And then those other touch points open up. And we actually work with a luxury watch retailer, one of the largest luxury watch marketplaces in Europe. And they're selling watches that are sometimes even 10,000, and we even saw one which was 150,000, and that happened from a Google Shopping ad. So there is these outliers where average order value is huge, but again, they've done that research. So what we see converts the best is lower item value, lower cart values really convert great from Google Shopping ads. As it becomes more considered, there might be a longer, more considered purchase. And also it depends on the enjoyment of that product, right? That's a product you're probably happy to be pretty nerdy about, to get really stuck into the features and benefits of that exact product in that selection, in that journey. It's quite enjoyable shopping for that product. Whereas if it was, I don't know, something else, something more mundane, less exciting, maybe income blocker or another item that just isn't exciting, then again, that customer's journey, they just want that item. And that is, again, where the price becomes less sensitive. And again, shoppers on the whole are believing that Google, that first result on the carousel, is the cheapest. So that's why we see this huge draw to people clicking at the front end of the carousel and not expanding it and keep going and going, or going other channels to find that cheapest price.
But to your point, that merchant that I ended up buying that product off of, if they weren't in Google Shopping at all, or if they weren't placing Google Shopping ads at all, they wouldn't have been in consideration. So even though they may have been in the 5th, 6th, 7th slot, the reality is it was still beneficial for them to have ads, even though they weren't paying the most to be at the first slot in the carousel. It was still beneficial to them because ultimately at the end of the day, they got the purchase, but they wouldn't have got the purchase if they weren't in the carousel at all. And so I think what you're saying is that you help to inform their bidding of whether they actually even need to be at the beginning of the carousel, because you know what the prices are listed in the carousel, what other products are listed in the carousel, you know how competitive the bidding is for that. You have this intelligence layer that if you were running these ads manually, and I don't know whether this retailer was running them manually or whether they're running them dynamically, I have no idea, you might just by default be in the right spot at the right time. I guess what your technology seems to do is to help ensure that people are in the right spot at the right time for the right product more often than not. And so therefore, as the consideration goes up and as the price goes up for a product, by definition, pricing becomes more important as opposed to the ad bid, right? Okay, we don't necessarily have to be in the first slot. We don't necessarily have to be in the second or even the third slot. We could be in the 5th, 6th, 7th slot. If there's $1,000 product and we happen to be the cheapest in the market on this product, or we think we're the cheapest in the market on this product, then maybe we don't have to be at the head of the queue. And so I guess all of that intelligence comes into your capability.
Absolutely. So really what sits behind this is a whole host of different insights that we have as well, which can be around price, which can be around availability, because maybe that retailer has overstock of that item. So maybe it's more strategic for them to have a higher bid and just take a little bit less profit on every sale just to get that stuff sold through. Maybe it's seasonal. Maybe it might have an element of freshness to it, or an element of a fashion season or a festive season that it needs to be sold in. And after that window, it's going to be very low value and have to be very heavily discounted. So maybe the next Huawei watch GTC is about to be released in a few weeks, and that retailer sat on a lot of this stock. So again, these signals start to come into it, and there we can use that to inform the bidding, the positioning on the ads, what search terms we're matching to those as well. Yeah, all these things come into it. And the other part you mentioned there is around the steps that you might have taken previously. So if you'd engage with that retailer's website through an ad, maybe you left after a couple of clicks, there's a component called RLSA lists. So these are retargeting lists for search ads. So just like in many other areas, that we can drop a pixel, we can recognize your user, assuming you've not cleared your pixels, and that means we can actually adjust our bids based on the behavior you have had on our website. So if you imagine you clicked an item added it to cart, someone comes to the door, you forget about that session, you come back thinking, oh, I still need to buy that Huawei watch. So you go back to Google and you search maybe a few days later. At that point, we can dictate and feed in what you've done on the website. So the fact that you'd been to the website, engaged with several pages, added something to the cart, we can now use that to modify our bid. So we might say, hey, we know that customer. We know he left the item in the cart. He's forgotten about us, unfortunately. He's gone back to Google, made a search around this product, very specific related to this item. So now we're going to bid more just for you as a user because of what you did on our website. So we can take that into account as well, those previous sessions and that previous customer journey on the retailer's website.
Wow, incredible. Absolutely incredible. Now, where do you guys typically fit in the overall tech stack? Presumably, you have to get a feed from them, whether that be from their e-commerce site or from their ERP or wherever they're, or maybe from their CDP. You have to get a feed from them, a product data feed from them. You have to standardize it, cleanse it, normalize it, send it out. You then are tracking all of these behaviors. Presumably, you then have maybe a piece of JavaScript of your own that sits on the retailer's website so they can track this behavior all the way from consideration to purchase. Where do you sit in what pieces of a merchant would you typically plug into to be able to provide your service?
Yeah, absolutely. So because the retailers are already active on Google Shopping, they're already going to have to hit that ceiling. They want more profitability, they want more growth, but they have been doing these ads before. That's typically when we get involved. So with these retailers, they've already got a feed, they've already got the ads. So putting that product feed from their website, from their PIN, whatever system they've got there for that product information, they will already have a feed tailored and submitted into what's called a Google Merchant Center. So that houses that product information. So we'll link into that and we'll audit how good is the feed. We'll review if there's opportunities for improvement. And we also link into their Google AdWords. So this is where they're making their bids, where they've got their Google Ads budget that's paid to Google on those clicks. So we'll link into the Merchant Center, we'll link into the AdWords account, and the Google Ads account will have tracking. So it will have pixels specifically placed onto that retailer's e-commerce store. They'll also have Google Analytics as well. So we'll link into their Google AdWords, which gives us that pixel information on the clicks, the bounce rates, all that information. We'll also get it from the Google Analytics. So they're the two components we link into, the Google Merchant Center for that product information and the Google AdWords for the campaign structure and the bidding, which is where we do our work. And then what we do is we audit their pixels as well. So unfortunately, a lot of retailers we see who have been running it maybe for years, maybe spending very large budgets every month on Google, are actually don't have their pixels set up perfectly as well. So we'll audit their pixels and we'll make some suggestions. For example, on Shopify, often retailers, if someone refreshes the cart, or on any e-commerce platform really, if they refresh the cart, sometimes it tracks another transaction. So they're over-tracking the conversions, over-tracking the revenue that they're getting. So often that needs analyzing and maybe some slight improvements. So again, we'd feed that back to the retailer if their tracking needs optimizing. And then from there, we build out the campaign structure. So we link in, it's all via the Google AdWords APIs. So we take that product information from their Google Merchant Center. So let's say they've got 10,000 SKUs, 10,000 unique product variants. We take that and we build out the most granular campaign structure in Google Shopping. So we're able to build out that targeting and set all that up dynamically and automatically as well at a very granular level. So an individual SKU is in what they call an ad group, which is what we place the bids on. And then we're able to also triplicate that. So effectively 3 ad groups for every single product SKU. And we're able to apply our purchase intent. So that means we're able to understand the search terms that are going into those products and bids on a search term by search term basis for the products that are coming in there as well. So it's really this, and that's all dynamic through pulling the information through the AdWords APIs, doing all the crunching in our own servers and our own databases, applying our machine learning, and then feeding back those bid changes in real time as well.
Wow, it's a lot of setup on your side is required, at least initially. And so that's why you guys have the audit process. And I'm guessing there's a bit of a white glove onboarding process. There's a service element to this. It's not just a SaaS platform and product service. It's actually an account managed type of service. So how do you guys make your money? You're a SaaS platform, I get that, but there is that service component. So how do you guys make your money?
Yeah, so we're a reoccurring revenue business. So we'll first of all audit an account. And that's really important because we need to make sure they're going to be the right type of business, that there is the opportunity there. So that's the starting point, is that we do an audit, and we actually do that for free. So we take that on the chin, and we go really detailed in terms of analyzing what exposure they're getting for their products, which ROI, which search terms they're coming up against. And we first validate how big is the market that they're selling into. Because as I said earlier, if someone's a D2C brand, if people aren't searching for their products, no one can make them a success, unfortunately, on Google. Maybe there's just that big disconnect. So that's the starting point, is to validate, is there a market for what they're selling? Can we get the reach and opportunity for them? But let's say that they are. Let's say that they've got products, they've got a competitive setup, then we take them through to being a customer. So as you say, we audit the feed, we'll check that the feed's in a good position, we'll get instant access, and we can typically get an account live in around 7 to 10 days. So it's not a lengthy process. It's really good, automated, quick setup that we've been able to get that down to. There's not a lot of access requests that they have to go through. There's no snippets or code or build. So in that respect, it's quite a lightweight for them, really lightweight for them. And around 10 days, we can be live with their accounts. In terms of how we make money, is we charge a recurring flat fee. That covers all of the structure, management, bidding, and also weekly or bi-weekly check-in with a strategist. So that strategist is going to be able to talk them through and understand what's going on in their business as well. So we can be structuring and putting the right outputs. So getting access to maybe other levels of data that they have that we can feed into that very granular campaign structure to be able to action. So to take that strategy from them and action it in there. And they also have dashboards that show the live reporting outside of AdWords as well.
And I'm guessing that you're pricing, I realize you're an enterprise grade product for enterprise sort of scale merchants. I take that from the way that you talk about your product on your website and the way that you've described it to me. It feels like very much an enterprise, or at least a mid-enterprise focused product. And I realize as a result of that, pricing is tailored per merchant. But can you give us an idea of how a merchant, I'm guessing it's based on the quantity of SKUs, based on ad spend, based on profitability. There's probably a whole lot of metrics that come into this. But just so that the audience can get a sense of how you guys charge for your services, so that if they were considering Bidnamic, they could start to formulate, I guess, a position in their mind of when Bidnamic would actually make sense for them commercially. What kind of, again, I don't expect you to be exact, but to give us some guidance around what kind of spend someone would typically have to spend, even if you couched it within the context of ad spend. How does that typically shake out in terms of pricing?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've got some amazing enterprise brands. I've also got a lot of mid-market brands as well. So if they're, first of all, we'll look to make sure that they're a good fit. So as a minimum, they've got to be spending a few $1,000s, probably like $4,000 to $5,000 a month on Google Shopping ads. So that's a rough kind of position that they would be to begin with. Now fees start from a few $1,000s. They're not actually that much when you think that all the campaign structure, all the setup, all the insights that we're able to bring. So yeah, they start from a few $1,000s a month, and they're really structured in relation to where that account is. So there's a few things we look at. One is the number of product SKUs. You can imagine most retailers around there, maybe 8 to 10,000 mark for SKUs. So that's going to be in the low thousands. However, if we're talking about a marketplace with hundreds of thousands or millions, or we even work with retailers who have tens of millions of product SKUs because they're marketplaces, they're not holding that inventory themselves, then naturally that's going to be a much higher cost. Equally as the ad spend scales out, and that means we're doing more processing on our side in terms of the purchase intent, the queries that are coming in. So yeah, we start from just a few $1,000s a month at the low entry grade, and it really scales up from there as you get into, as the business scales. And that's also replicated as we move into different territories as well. So if you've got a retailer who's in the USA and they launch in the UK, there'll be an additional fee for the additional regions, such as the UK, because that's a new website, it's a new feed, it's different search queries coming in there. However, we can bring over a lot of the insights, the search queries, the knowledge that we've built up for that retailer, which means that they're going to be at a great starting point. But again, that is then an additional fee as they go into different countries.
Love it. Very reasonable. That's pretty standard for enterprise class SaaS software. That kind of model, that kind of bespoke tailored model makes a lot of sense when you're getting up to that tier of retailers. So it makes complete sense.
Yeah, I think the key for us is that we have to be, if we're working with a client, it needs to be a win-win pricing model. There's no point us coming in and it's just way too expensive for the profit that they're making. So we really see our goal to be, we're going to drive up your profitability. We're going to drive up your revenue growth to that point that it's just a no-brainer to have us bringing in there, because without that level of granularity, that drive, then you're not going to get that level of performance. Really, as a platform, we come in and we very quickly pay for ourselves.
And I guess you also reduce costs in two different unique ways. You reduce the cost of each sale by making sure that someone is not overbidding for a start off,
Yeah.
and that they're dynamically adjusting that bid amount throughout the given day, throughout the day of the week, throughout the hours, etc. You're dynamically adjusting that in near real time on the fly. So that's the first way, I guess, that I would assume you would bring down costs to the
Yeah.
merchant of running those ads. But secondarily, I guess if they have a dedicated internal resource today around managing those ads, setting the bids, optimizing the listings, all that sort of stuff, and I know many retailers would have a dedicated resource internally at the very least to managing Google ads, if
Yeah.
not Google Shopping on its own. And therefore, you effectively, how much human input then, if you're in place, do they need that dedicated Google Shopping resource anymore? Or effectively, you're able to replace that with AI and machine learning and free them up to do the true value add stuff in their digital marketing stack?
Yeah, that's it. It's all about adding efficiency to that person. Most people don't enjoy crunching huge amount of numbers, building out these campaigns, going into and they can't go into this level of detail with this. It's just simply, it's gone beyond what a human can manage. Absolutely. It's about giving that person more efficiency, freeing them up to work into other areas. So really, we allow teams to scale their revenue, scale their results without necessarily scaling their headcount dramatically. However, we're not coming in and replacing the role of somebody in an in-house team, because actually that in-house team is really connected cross-functionally to what's going on in that business. So they're aware of overstocked items. They're aware of festive products that just need shipping. They're aware of new model releases, which are happening in a month's time. They're aware of just so many different areas of the business, and it's really allowing them to feed that back. And that's why we have that service layer, so that we can tap into that person's expertise, that person's knowledge of their products, their market, their business, and taking that and feeding it into the strategy and the automation that's happening through the software in their account as well.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. Look, this has been such a great chat. Fantastic information. If people want to get a hold of you or Bidnamic, are they best to simply go to Bidnamic, Bidnamic.com, or are they best to reach out to you directly, Liam Patterson on LinkedIn? Or how would you prefer that people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about Bidnamic or find out more about how you guys operate and what you guys do?
Yeah, I'd say go to the website, go to bidnamic.com. There's a book and audit. You can schedule a time straight away there. So there's no back and forth on email. You can speak to one of our specialists. And that means we've got offices in the UK, we've got offices in Austin, Texas. So again, the time zone won't be so much of a challenge as it might be if you were to speak with myself. And yeah, certainly drop in that you heard the podcast, and I'll try and jump on the call as well if I can. And yeah, please do hit me up on LinkedIn. But I'd say as a direct point, yeah, check out the website and book through there.
Absolutely brilliant. No, that makes total sense. Now we're at the point of our time together where I get to flip the script. I get to turn the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question, any question you like. It can be personal, professional, doesn't matter. So over to you, Liam Patterson from Bidnamic. What is your question for me today?
Yeah, so I've heard loads of great episodes, and I suppose of all the technologies out there, all the ways that retailers can get that leg up in e-commerce, in growth. What would be your takeaway? What's your kind of? We're often asked by our clients, "Oh, have you come across any magic bullets, any that can help drive growth?" So yeah, you seem like a well-positioned man to ask that question to.
Look, mate, that is a brilliant question. And what surprises me is that I still get surprised. To this day, I will still come across technologies like yours that I have never been exposed to before. I've never used or implemented or recommended to clients before because we just didn't have the opportunity or I didn't know it existed. And so I guess what I have found is the educational nature of the podcast for me personally it always continues to surprise me how much more, even though I've been doing this for 22, 23 years now, there's still so much to learn. You never know it all. And there's been some super creative approaches to individual retailer challenges or groups of retailer challenges or vertical specific challenges that retailers have. And when you think of some of the technologies that I've featured recently, Nibble leaps out to me as one that was super unique, super cool, using the power of negotiation to present an interactive pricing negotiation on product pages on e-commerce websites, to where every single price can be negotiated by effectively an AI chatbot. That one was super interesting to me. I'd never heard of it before until they came onto the podcast. So that's the thing, the fact that I'm continually surprised by the creativity in our industry and the hard slog that thousands and thousands of founders like yourself put in every single day to help make our community stronger, better, faster, more efficient, helping retailers make money. Because it is very difficult for retailers to make money online. That's just the hard facts of this, is that there is so much competition, e-commerce competition, because the TAM exploded during COVID.
Yep.
So did the competition. And every man and his dog seemed to set up a niche website around their favorite pastime, their interest, their hobbies, whatever. And as we know, now that the market is starting to contract, that TAM has shrunk, and physical retail is picking back up where it left off. And we've had a slight COVID bump, but it's less than 1% globally, that lingering bump versus the average trend, the upwards trend of e-commerce penetration. So for me, what I'm seeing is that people like you are coming to the market with technology that actually gives genuine retailers doing good work, selling good products, fair prices, and really looking after their customers and respecting their customers. It gives them a fighting chance of surviving and actually creating a sustainable business online. And I think particularly with the death of third-party cookies, I think with the iOS change and everything else, it is only going to get harder for merchants to remain profitable and sustainable moving forward online. And I think that I'm just continually impressed with the technologies like yours coming to the market, running effectively to the aid of merchants. And so not only do I get to learn a lot through this podcast, but it's my hope that I get to expose the market to products or technologies that people have never heard of before. Not the mainstream stuff, the Klaviyo's, the Shopify's. Not that there's anything wrong with those technologies. It's just that every man and his dog has heard of those technologies before. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to unearth more niche technologies that can really move the needle for merchants that they wouldn't have a hope in hell of ever hearing of.
Yeah, awesome.
So that, I don't know if I answered the question directly or not, but that's I guess is the honest answer.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, really insightful.
Listen, Liam, it has been an absolute pleasure hosting you today. I appreciate all your insider information about how Google Ads and Google Marketing and Google Shopping and Google Merchant Center, you've been an absolute wealth of knowledge. Your many years working in this space is showing through, no doubt about it. So I really appreciate your time today, and hopefully we'll be able to get you on again in the future and see how your platform has evolved.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Jason.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.